Thank you. So, we have a comedian hard quiz show, and when he begins his hard quiz, he always starts with, I'm getting into, and then there's a quiz about what he's been getting into. I'm going to tell you what I've been getting into over Christmas, but I'm not going to ask any questions. So, I just have to find the button. So, spelunking. What is spelunking, and why did I get into it over Christmas? Well, some people would say it's cave diving, which it is, but I did not go cave diving. I have to tell you, I've got more sense than that. My days of going down holes and breaking legs and things like that are gone. However, I did something that maybe made me insane or maybe not. There are, of course, caves in Victoria if you do want to go spelunking. But I was more interested in a particular cave in Kentucky. And that cave in Kentucky has a great history within the world of text gaming. So who here may or may not have played Colossal Cave Adventure? You must be as old as I am. So back when the internet didn't exist and back when computing was young, the only games you could get were text games. And one of the very first was this one, the Colossal Cave. And it was built by a guy called Bill Crowther and his wife Pat, and they worked at one of the early internet firms building the ARPANET. So they were based over here on the east coast of the US. And of course nobody on YouTube saw me do that, did they? No. Sorry guys, I pointed on the green oval. So Bill wrote this game and he built it around his favorite cave, which is in the bottom corner of the screen, which is based in Kentucky. And it is a cave system that was made famous by the fact that his wife was able to crawl from one part of the cave system to what people thought was another cave system, and she proved there was a narrow connection there that she was small enough to be able to crawl through. See why I wasn't stupid on Christmas? And so it was one cave system. And so Bill, who was into Dungeons and Dragons, hands up anybody? A few more. Decided that he would build this text game and use as its labyrinth the real cave system, but then populate it with Dungeons and Dragons type figures like snakes and dwarves and so on. And then the guy on the West Coast working at Stanford University thought this was great, and by the way, there's a apocryphal rumor that a lot of the failures in computer science in 1975 and 1976 were caused by students doing this game instead of doing real work. So Don asked, could he take the game and do some stuff with it? And Bill said, knock yourself out. And so Don added a whole lot of humor to it. And that was the beginning of people starting to port it. And so over the next 20 years, it was ported to many different languages. And finally, in 2017, Eric Raymond contacted Bill and said, do you mind if we just open source this? And Bill said, no, go ahead. And you're saying, what the hell has this got to do with CocoaHeads? The answer is very little. It does have a lot to do with my semester at Swinburne, where I had to pick up object-oriented programming, and last year I had to learn C# and give up my lovely Swift. And the unit has multiple streams. It's all about the theory of OO and UML and how to do it. It's also C# syntax, debugging, and in-unit testing. Graphics is they have to build a graphics playground kind of thing. And then the pièce de résistance is a text game system built around an identifier object, and then you layer on top of that, we have a games object, we have a user, we have a bag, we have an item, and we have locations, and we have pathways, and so on and so on. And so students still build that, and at the end of it all, they will have got maybe 1 or 2 rooms and a pathway between it and 2 or 3 items. But I wanted something more challenging. So that's why I went looking into the deep archives of the internet and found the Colossal Cave, and found it had been open sourced. And so I took all of the Fortran tables and converted them into objects within Swift and produced a nice Swift command line application that was the Colossal Cave. And then I ported it into a SwiftUI framework so I could perhaps put the graphics on top of that. And then I thought, I've got a really good system now for really stress testing students' work. Instead of 2 or 3 rooms and a pathway between those rooms, I can now throw at them what they've built: 200 rooms, 400 pathways, 100 different items, and see how it goes. So I now have a framework which tests what they build for systems integration testing, user acceptance testing, and this really is a stress test as well. So that was my Christmas. That was my deep dive into real caves, fictitious caves, C#, and so on. My next challenge, and this is where Sean, you come in, because I first met Sean standing in a queue in Los Angeles airport on the way to WWDC 2015. And at WW15, I was standing in a queue, and I met the young lady on my right. And she was there to have her version of her tutoring program ported to the latest variation of iOS and its rules, etc., etc. And she's had to do it again in 2017, and so she contacted me this year and said, Ed, can you fix this? I'm tired of having things ported. So my next challenge is to move this Object-C code from circa 2009 into UIKit, then SwiftUI, and maybe an macOS universal application, as well as doing Figma design and C#. And if you're interested in the long history, there's some footnotes and bookmarks, and knock yourselves out. Enjoy yourselves. Thank you.